Good Monday morning. It is July 7th. I hope your July 4th weekend was a good one. Certainly a busy one for a lot of folks. Welcome to the Weather Desk, where we tackle today's top weather headlines. And we've got some big stories to discuss with you today. Obviously, some pretty tragic events over the weekend. We're going to talk about these things in the top headline: Texas flood tragedy update. We will get into more information that continues to come out from Kerrville, Texas, an area off to the northwest of San Antonio, just off to the southwest of Austin in central Texas. Just devastating. And we've got some more information and some things that are kind of interesting about that. You know, the National Weather Service has come under criticism for some of the forecasting that led up to it. And we're going to show you exactly all of the warnings and statements that were issued out leading up to it. So they actually, when you go back and take a look, they were out ahead of that flood situation. Really interesting situation there. We also have Chantal, and we're going to talk about what's going on with this tropical depression. It's impacting Virginia right now, but it's really just producing kind of light to maybe moderate rain in some parts of Virginia. There is some potential flooding across northern parts of the Commonwealth, but for Hampton Roads, we're in pretty good shape, and I will give you the latest on that and where that is heading. Also, a couple other areas we're keeping an eye to in the tropics. And then I thought this was really interesting. Late last week and over the weekend, you know, we've had these elevated threats for rip currents. Chantal actually kind of stirring up our coastal waters a little bit as well. Well, there are new recommendations for how to survive rip currents. And, you know, we used to say just swim parallel to the coast, you'll come out of it and be able to swim back in. There's a couple subtle changes to the recommendations now, and kind of some best practices moving forward. We'll show you a special story coming up on that. But I want to start off, and we'll take a quick look at Chantal here. You can see this thing much lighter with the rainfall compared to what was going on. You take a look at what was going on across northern parts of North Carolina. Flood advisories were out there. We had some flash flood warnings out around South Hill and some of the other areas out across south central Virginia and north central North Carolina. Now, as this is moving along, it's still going to produce a lot of rain for the northern neck up into Maryland, but not as much as it was producing. And again, while there's an elevated flood risk, we're really not looking at any warnings or advisories that are coming up just yet. So we're doing okay. And Hampton Roads has been pretty dry. So again, that concentration of heavier rain off to the north and west, you can see the heaviest of that activity passing north of Richmond. And for Hampton Roads, we do have a chance for a few showers a little bit later on. But really, aside from a few isolated showers, maybe a storm or two, things aren't looking too bad for us right here. Now, I do want to take you back to Texas. I mentioned this was the big headline, and we're going to zoom in and show you what we're talking about. Here's San Antonio, here's Austin, and out here, the smaller town of Kerrville. And right now, hundreds of first responders are on the ground in Texas searching for those still missing after intense flooding. The high waters devastated Kerr County, and particularly Kerrville. You can see its location there off to the north and northwest of San Antonio, and then off to the west and southwest of Austin here in central Texas. Now, officials say at least 80 people have died, including several children and camp counselors. These search efforts come as that region braces for another round of showers. And you can see right now they're catching a little bit of a break, but there are some showers and some heavier rain just off to the north. ABC's Christian Cordero has the details.
This morning, hundreds of first responders from some 20 different agencies are on the ground and in the air, searching for dozens of people still missing after catastrophic floods swept through Texas's hill country. This time-lapse video shows the speed at which the Llano River rose Friday night. Floodwaters brought down trees, homes, and buildings, tearing through Camp Mystic, where 750 girls were spending the holiday weekend. Some are still reported missing. Most of the fatalities happened in Kerr County. Reagan Brown's elderly parents live there in Hunt, Texas. They escaped the rising waters and rescued their 92-year-old neighbor who was trapped in her attic.
She's never seen anything like it. So this is the highest anybody that we know has ever witnessed the water in this valley.
Among those killed, Dr. Catherine Eads, who was camping in an RV with her husband, Jane Ragsdale, director of Heart of the Hills Camp, and 27-year-old Julian Ryan, father of 2 young sons. With more rain on the way, first responders are using boats and helicopters to reach people holding onto trees. ABC's Mireya Villarreal embedded with the Coast Guard as they search through the dense forest.
We got a FLIR camera on the front of the aircraft. You can see back there, it's that little black ball turret up there. But it is a very good camera that we have, and it's also an infrared camera, so we can find heat signatures.
President Trump has signed a major disaster declaration for the area, and FEMA is now on the ground to assist. But questions remain about the future of the agency. When asked about his plans to phase out FEMA, which he previously said could happen by the end of the year, Trump said this.
Well, FEMA is something we can talk about later, but right now they're busy working, so we'll leave it at that.
Trump also said he will probably visit Texas on Friday, calling the devastation absolutely horrible. Christiane Cordero, ABC News, Washington.
Some questions have been raised as to whether or not the National Weather Service issued enough emergency alerts ahead of the flooding in Texas. And this morning, the National Weather Service is defending how it handled the situation, releasing the full timeline of the events and the statements that they issued. All right, in brief, the National Weather Service says it issued at least a dozen alerts about the flooding between Thursday afternoon. The first flash flood watch was issued at 1:18. That was on Thursday afternoon. The Weather Prediction Center issued excessive rainfall statements and flash flooding potential at 6:10 that evening. The first flash flood warnings were issued around 11:41. That was Thursday night, and the flash flood warning with a considerable tag was issued at 1:15. That automatically pushes out emergency wireless alerts. So that's what we call a WEA message when they had considerable tag to that flash flood warning. The first reports of flooding at low water crossings actually came in at 4:35 in the morning. So the National Weather Service actually had over 200 minutes of lead time on those warnings. Unfortunately, though, again, as we take a look at those timelines, this flooding occurred overnight when many people were asleep and they may have just missed or maybe not had access to their phones, and a lot of people just didn't know. Now, the other question was how much staffing was at the National Weather Service. They actually had extra help on hand during the storm. Instead of 2 forecasters, which is what they would typically have on, they had 5 on duty to deal with that excessive rainfall. So they actually were overstaffed, as they do. That is a standard practice when there are major severe weather events. The National Weather Service at the local offices will call in extra Mets and make sure they are fully staffed and even have some extra folks. So that was the case there. Again, that is something that we will continue to hear more about, but that is what the National Weather Service had in place covering those events. Now, regardless, there is still a very serious situation going on, and the recovery and help from Virginia is now on the way to Texas. Overnight, the Virginia Beach Fire Department's Swift Water Rescue Team left for Texas under the Emergency Management Assistance Compact. The team is trained in rope techniques, river rescues, and boat operations. The battalion chief says Virginia Beach was among the first to respond, and they're ready to help.
3 vehicles go and a trailer that's behind me right now. That trailer has all of our specialized equipment in it, from different types of boats, of course our safety equipment, life vests, helmets.
This marks the team's 5th deployment since forming in 2022. Volunteers from the Mercy Chefs in Portsmouth and Operation Blessing in Virginia Beach are also on the ground helping. Now, Texas isn't the only state dealing with flooding this morning. Tropical Depression Chantal has dumped several inches of rain over central North Carolina. This is a look at the flooding in Durham. You can see cars that parked in this parking lot are almost completely underwater. First responders have conducted more than 50 water rescues in and around the Durham area and those surrounding counties since last night. So far, there have not been any reported injuries or deaths. All right, I want to talk a little bit more about what's happening here in Hampton Roads. Again, you can see some wet weather there kind of spinning along to the north. When Chantal came in, it did kick up some of the wave action along our coast. And I want to focus on Virginia Beach and the ocean front as we zoom in here. You can see that we do have rip current threat up a little bit. It is moderate. It was higher at times over the weekend, but right now we have a moderate threat of rip currents, and this is one of the impacts that we felt from Chantal. The system is raising that rip current threat. So far this year, rip currents account for at least 14 deaths across the country. And now the National Atmospheric and Oceanic Administration, NOAA, has issued new guidance on what to do if you ever find yourself caught in a rip current. ABC's Victor Oquendo explains.
We're in Melbourne Beach, Florida, searching for rip currents. In May, a young girl caught in a rip current, helped by a bystander using a drone to deliver a flotation device. Thankfully, she survived.
What makes a rip current so dangerous? They're out there every day, and surfers and watermen, we use them to our advantage to get out past the waves and enjoy them. But if you don't know and you bring your family from inland America somewhere, you can find yourself into trouble and it can be a fatal day.
We're focusing on 2 points that can help keep you alive. First, how to spot them so you can stay out of them. While rip currents can sometimes be impossible to see, there are clues you should look for. Here in Melbourne Beach, the most clear indicator are these dips in the shoreline where the water stretches further up onto the beach.
What I like to tell people is where there's a dip, there's a rip. Have you ever been on the beach and the tides come in and wet all your stuff, but the people along each side of you are dry? You're in the rip. Stay out of it.
Other signs can be found on the surface of the water. Look for white foam like this, or debris being pulled away from the shore. Or they could look like this, that flat area where the waves aren't breaking, created by a rip current. And the most obvious signs of danger, areas along jetties or piers, and of course red flags. When in doubt, ask a lifeguard.
Here we go.
Next, if you do get caught in a current, how to escape it. NOAA now says the age-old advice of swimming parallel to shore may not always work. So I put myself into one to show you why.
It's taking us to the left,
which is parallel to shore. So for me, that is not the safest path out.
the current can pull you to the left, it can pull you to the right, it can also spin you in a circle.
It's chaotic and disorienting. Human instinct wants you to fight for your life, but experts say it's that panic exerting too much energy trying to swim against the current that leads to death.
I just tried swimming against the current. I'd say I made it maybe 10, 15 yards, and you can hear me. I'm out of gas.
Experts say most people can't swim more than about 50 yards without needing to touch bottom. If you get caught in a rip, you might have to swim 3 to 4 times that to get back to shore, meaning even if you can swim out of the current, you may not have the strength to get to safety.
I'm pretty tired. And the idea of having to go another 50 or 60 yards back to shore, I don't think I can make that.
So instead, experts now urging do less.
The key is not to panic. Let that current take you out and then flip and float. Some people call it floating like a leaf.
Legs up, back of the head against the water, and using only gentle movements. This will relax you, conserve energy, and help you stay above water longer. It'll also give you a beat to determine which direction the current is flowing. If you can, swim perpendicular to that direction, like swimming to the side of a river. When you no longer feel the pull, swim at an angle back to shore. If you can't, just float until help arrives.
Use your hands to signal somebody, and you should be okay.
Victor Oquendo, ABC News.
I will tell you, okay, I was a lifeguard coming out of high school and college and actually taught swim lessons and was taught by my dad, who was U.S. Navy, and we were always in and around the water. One of the first things we learned as children were how to float on our back and not to panic. So what they're saying now, flip and float kind of go with it a little bit until you're out of it, and then you can swim back in a little more easily. Some good stuff there from Victor Akendo. All right, here's a look at what's happening nationally, and I want to get into the severe weather outlook. You know, we do that a lot here on the Weather Desk, talking about the areas that are going to be most under fire potentially for strong to severe storms. And as we take a look here nationally, even though we have Chantal cutting across the eastern parts of Virginia right now, it's just producing some rain showers. We do have, again, no real significantly elevated threat for severe weather. You know, we always watch those bands and everything, but we're not looking at a lot of banding. There's not a lot of energy with this thing, just kind of a general spin here that's moving along. The severe weather threat is actually off to the northwest. So as you can see, again, we have from New England up around Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, back across New York State, western PA, down through Ohio, northern Kentucky, southern Indiana, and southern Illinois through Missouri. This is all a level 1 threat. Let's take this full for a second because I want to go ahead and I'm going to pop on very quickly that flood outlook just in case you missed that. We do want you to know there is this flood potentially across parts of the region as well. We'll get back into the severe weather outlook in just a moment. But as I mentioned with Chantal, there is that level 1 threat for parts of Hampton Roads, including the peninsula, the middle peninsula, and the eastern shore. Once you go farther north, the northern neck, which includes areas around Tappahannock all the way up through Allen's Fresh, and then areas off to the north of that up into Maryland. You can see Easton and Cambridge, back through Elliott, Seaford, up into Delaware, Dover. There you have a level 2 threat, which extends back up through Philadelphia and all the way up towards South Brunswick. So again, those areas under the level 2 threat for some flash flooding as the remnants of Chantal move along. Pittsburgh and areas off to the north and northeast of that up through Binghamton and Syracuse, New York, you have a level 2 threat as well, while areas out to the west have a level 1 threat. We are still looking at some potential for additional flooding there around San Antonio, just Austin on the level 1 threat, but you can bet folks there in Kerrville, again, holding their breath after going through everything that they have gone and continue to go through, some of that heavier rain just off to the north and west, potentially all the way up through San Angelo. So that's what's happening there. Now we'll come back to the severe weather threat and show you again just a level 1 threat from the boot heel of Missouri up through the northeast as we turn our attention back across the Great Plains. We're talking South Dakota into Nebraska here. This is where we get that 3rd level, or what we call an enhanced threat of severe storms. It's level 2 all the way up across northern Minnesota on the western side of Minnesota and all the way down through eastern Colorado. There's that level 2 threat, but this area in orange, this is the area of greatest concern for potential tornadic development. So as we take a look, I'll give you a few of the cities here. We're looking at Watertown and Aberdeen, back through Huron, these areas down to the south of that. Once you come back into Nebraska here, North Platte under a level 2 elevated risk, Valentine the same. And that extends into the northeast part of Colorado, out just off to the northeast of Sterling. So these areas, again, we'll be watching. Here's Denver outside of that elevated risk for tornadoes, but anywhere there out across the northeast part of Colorado, folks there will certainly want to pay close attention. Northwest Kansas and then up into Nebraska. Large hail, a bigger issue here from parts of eastern and northeastern Colorado all the way up through west Nebraska and South Dakota. Here you're talking 2-inch or greater diameter hail, potentially in the hashed out area. We've got that elevated risk up into Minnesota and then down into the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma. Powerful winds as well. Some areas could see some gusts in excess of 70 or 75 miles per hour. That's for today. For tomorrow, you can see we do have an elevated wind potential here, and that elevated risk of strong or damaging winds back across much of Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, back into eastern Colorado, and you can see the panhandles, Texas, back into New Mexico. So we're watching for that. Our risk here with some stronger storms during the afternoon. It's a level 1 threat, so we'll continue to watch that. The tornadic threat really isn't elevated, at least not identified by the Storm Prediction Center yet, but we'll be watching all of it. So how do things play out? Well, we'll just give you kind of the broad view of the futurecast. Look at how nice it is out west. Things looking really good. Some scattered showers here, some more wet weather across Texas later today. Those powerful storms erupting again across the Dakotas up into Minnesota. This is the battleground today. Some more intense rain potentially across Iowa, back through Nebraska, down into the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma. That all works eastward into early Tuesday. For our area, we start off nice. We will see some chances for showers. I'll get hyper local for Hampton Roads in the mid-Atlantic coming up in just a few minutes here. But I do want to focus on some more of the storminess back across the central U.S. and down through Texas. As we look at this broader range here, you'll notice that moves along through the day tomorrow and into Wednesday. Unsettled weather for the eastern U.S., while things are still pretty quiet for a good part of the central and western part of the country. All right, let's talk some more about Chantal, and you can see the remnants moving along. That intense rain that we saw over North Carolina here, and some of the flooding that we had around Durham and areas just off to the north and west of Raleigh there, that is really weakened. There's still some moderate to heavier rain, but it's not that really steady heavy rain that was producing the flooding earlier yesterday and overnight out to the west. So that is good news for us. Still, some scattered showers will be possible across Hampton Roads. As we check in with the tropical update, let's give you the latest on Chantal. This is a 5 a.m. advisory. Okay, when they put this out, said the next full advisory was going to be at 11. I thought there might be an 8 o'clock. They're just going with the 11 o'clock update. It is going to continue to track that center just off to the northwest of the Hampton Roads viewing area and then track into Maryland later this afternoon. That may be the last statement they put out on it. They may turn it over to the Weather Prediction Center, the remnant low. We'll see. But at any rate, it is forecast to continue off in this general direction. Maximum winds 30 miles per hour. I'm not seeing anything that's really stronger than that, although a few higher gusts are possible. And again, that movement northeast at 15 miles per hour. After that, aside from Chantal, the rest of the tropical Atlantic basin is quiet as we look all the way across the Atlantic over towards Africa. Everything's still looking good. Next name on the list is Dexter. Hopefully we won't have to worry about that for a little while, but of course we always keep an eye out. So far, Andrea, Barry, and Chantal, all just tropical storms. No hurricanes yet. Now, the Eastern Pacific, different story there as we zoom into this area. This has been a very, very active region. We don't have any active storms right now, but there are two areas we're watching. This one here with a 30% chance of development over the next couple of days. It's a tropical wave we'll watch. And this area here, there's a 20% chance of development several hundred miles off the coast of Mexico, so not a threat to land. So we'll continue to watch that. The next name on the list there is Gil. And you can see that we've had 1, 2, 3 hurricanes. There was Barbara, Eric, and Flossie. So some 2 major hurricanes at that. So a lot of activity in the East Pacific. Next name on the list is Gil. All right, we're going to bring it back home and talk some more about what's happening across the region and over the past week. It was so hot last week. The pattern really broke Tuesday night into Wednesday. And then we've been in the 80s. We've been enjoying what was an absolutely fantastic weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for Hampton Roads. As we look forward, temperatures today back in the mid to upper 80s. I think we should top out around 88, maybe 89 officially. The model's now starting to back down just a little bit on that, given the additional cloud cover out there. You don't really see much in terms of rain, but there could be a stray shower or storm still across the area. It's overcast right now, this Thompson Creek Window Company sky view from the Jordan Bridge, and you can see it's pretty quiet right now. We did have a few raindrops earlier on our tower here in Norfolk, our sky view from that location showing some rain on the camera housing, but it's been very light. 79 at the airport, winds are south at 16 miles per hour. That dew point in the lower 70s. Still a lot of humidity out there. If you're going to the beaches, again, low risk of a stray shower. We might see something around midday or maybe early afternoon, but it'll be very, very spotty. Temperatures getting into the mid 80s there. There is that moderate threat of rip currents, as we talked about a little earlier in the show, and the surf height is running 2 to 4 feet. All right, as we look at the marine forecast, small craft advisory is still up this morning for the bay and for the ocean. So a little rough out there, and with Chantal going by, small craft advised to stay in port. You don't want to go there as that depression moves across the northern part of the bay a little bit later today. That's going to churn things up a bit. Now, the heavier rain stays off to the north. There could be these spotty showers, maybe a stray storm or two. South side or on the peninsula down into northeast North Carolina as well. Temperatures again into the upper 80s later this afternoon. We'll go quiet overnight with skies clearing out. We're going to see some more clearing as we head towards sunrise tomorrow. Looks really good. And that hot tomorrow back up into the 90s. Those chances for stray showers and storms later in the afternoon. As we go through the overnight and into Wednesday, we're going to do it again. And this is a pattern that will continue where you get showers and storms kind of firing up during the afternoon. Then things quiet down overnight. Then you go through the next day, more heating, showers and storms fire up again. Then they quiet down again as we go overnight. I think that's a pattern that's going to continue for several days. You can see what happens here Wednesday with the additional showers. All right, as we take a look, grass pollen is low today. Weeds not an issue yet. Mold not an issue either. So that is good news. Temperatures are going to top out in the mid to upper 80s where you see a little bit of sunshine. Some spots might hit 90, 91 degrees. I do expect maybe a stray shower or storm here. There's still potentially. Peninsula, similar temperatures, upper 80s to near 90, upper 80s for the middle peninsula, low to mid 80s on the eastern shore. Outer Banks, upper 80s, a little breezy around Manio. Chances for a few stray showers still, even across northeast North Carolina. Tonight's low down around 77, clearing overnight. Evening shower storm possible, but we'll probably see that stuff ending very early if there's anything lingering at all. I do look forward to the clearing as we go through the overnight. And tomorrow, mostly sunny early, becoming partly sunny with a shower storm possible late, the high in the mid-90s. After that, we step back closer to average, upper 80s to near 90 for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Each day a chance for scattered showers and storms. We may bump these numbers up or down a little bit on rain chances. Models kind of going back and forth on it, but the bottom line is there is going to be that chance for a few stray showers or storms each afternoon. Saturday, scattered and isolated showers or storms possible on Sunday, even into Monday or Tuesday of next week. Definitely a pattern here where you're going to want to stay up with the latest on it and have access to the radars. And the best way to do that is by scanning this QR code and getting the 13 News Now mobile app. You'll get the latest news, traffic, and weather on the go with the 13 News Now app. Just scan that QR code and it'll take you there. The app is free and it's available anywhere you find your mobile apps. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the Weather Desk. Again, a very painful weekend for so many Americans, especially down in Texas, dealing with those floodings. Absolutely tragic situation down there. We will continue to follow that and have more updates for you on that over the coming days from the Weather Desk. And again, we're keeping an eye to the tropics and all of our local weather for Hampton Roads and really all across the country. Stay safe out there and have a great day. We'll see you next time.